John, you're in a place where, because you're in an NFL city, it's NFL first. But college football is big in the state of Texas, obviously, and it's big in Houston. We're in a place where it's college football first, and then the NFL is secondary. You got Saints fans, and you got, maybe some Titans fans and Cowboys fans because they're everywhere. But it's college football first where we are. And we're always struck as college football fans about how little a lot of the people that cover the NFL know about college football in terms of the players, the results, etc. So one of the things that I took away was I really like what Philadelphia is doing. Now, you're talking about a team that played in the Super Bowl a year ago, but the Eagles said, we're not going to outthink the room. Now, they moved up and they got one guy that they really liked, obviously, in Jalen Carter at 9. But they went and they got guys off the two best teams in college football. They went and they got Georgia guys and Alabama guys. And I kept thinking, that's not a bad way to build your roster. When you say, okay, who are the best teams in college football? Let's take the best players off those if they're available and bring them in because we know they're cut from a winning background, a winning culture, and we know there's a ton of talent there. Am I crazy for thinking that more teams should be looking at that in kind of building their draft boards?
I mean, if you relied on it solely, Richard, that was the only thing. We're only drafting guys from Georgia. Okay, that'd be one thing. But if you went out and said, we're going to get the best players from the University of Georgia, then as Philadelphia has done, it's going to pay off. I think it's going to pay off in a big way. I don't think you're stupid at all. I mean, look at what we did. Last year, now we haven't seen John Mechie on the field, but we hope to. But we drafted John Mechie and Christian Harris on Friday in 2022. This year we drafted Will Anderson on night 1, and then we drafted Henry To'oTo'o on day 3. So we kind of have the Alabama thing going. And Nick Caserio was asked about that. Well, you think you're going to the well a little bit too much, and like, no. I mean, they have a winning program at Alabama, and I think that's maybe it more than anything else is players understanding how to win and what it takes to go to a different level. And that I don't think is that easy to find, to be honest with you. You can have talented players and, they come from a lot of different universities. But when you have a place like Georgia where it has been ingrained, I mean, you could see it in the way those guys play. And then on top of that, they play against NFL talent every day. So they're in practice. They're going against NFL talent every day. So they're honing their skills, as they say, iron sharpens iron. Well, they're doing that every day. And so I think you're getting I don't say a little bit more polished player, but you're getting a player that has been through it. And I think Alabama's kind of the same way. Now, it seems like Georgia has obviously taken over. But I think also it made a lot of sense this year, too. With Jalen Carter, there were some questions about things off the field, all that. Well, what about surrounding him with players he's comfortable with up in Philadelphia that can, say to him, hey, look, man, come on. We can't have that stuff like we did back at school. We're here to support you and get the best out of you. So I think Philly did the right thing going and getting Jalen Carter, moving up one spot with the Bears to do it, but then surrounding him already with Jordan Davis there, and then drafting and Nakobe Dean there as well, who was the leader of all of them in 21, and then drafting Nolan Smith, who was obviously a big leader for them. So I think there's definitely a method to their madness. But to me, it makes me upset because I look around going, hey, NFL teams, y'all going to let Philly keep doing this? Because we're going to all be playing for second and third place down the road if you keep letting them have hosses in the middle like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. We're going to keep losing to these dudes.
That's fine. John, I got a couple of guys at the quarterback spot that I want to ask you about. But first, I want to go to the 16th pick of the first round. The Washington Commanders took Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. And there are a lot of people talking about Forbes. They're like, well, I don't know if he's big enough, and maybe he's going to fall to the second day. He ends up going in the middle of the first round. Washington clearly identified him as if he is there on the board, we are taking him. He is undersized at 6'1" and 166 pounds. But he also had 14 interceptions in 3 years in college and took 6 of those to the house and can absolutely fly. What do you make of Emmanuel Forbes? When you look at him, when you think about Emmanuel Forbes 5 years down the line in the NFL, are we talking Pro Bowl / All-Pro type corner? Are we talking about a guy who hangs around and he's a good player but maybe not a great player? Are you worried about the frame at 166? What stands out?
I mean, first of all, when you have ball skills like he does, his anticipation understanding of routes, transitional quickness, breaking forward on things in front of him. I was blown away. Blown away. Obviously, has the pick six against Kentucky. And what stood out to me in the pick six against Kentucky was he recognized the play right away, because that's not a play that you typically see a defensive back pick off. And he saw it, read it, and then broke on it. And I was like, whoa, that's different. I think where he'll start is inside, especially, they always talk about the fit of where a guy goes. They have two outside corners that are pretty big guys. I mean, Benjamin St-Juste is like 6'2", 210. And Kendall Fuller is at least 6 foot, 6'1", 195. So I think what they'll do with Forbes is they'll play him inside to start. And they'll play him inside to start because I think he can match up a lot more. And this is one of the things that I think colleges do a lot better than the NFL does. Colleges will take that, and you saw it at Ole Miss. A.J. Brown, I've seen, we saw at SEC, Justin Jefferson did it with LSU. They're taking a dynamic receiver and putting him in a slot. And then they're forcing a defense to go, oh boy, should we get into sub package? Should we get into nickel? Or should we stay in our base defense? Or either way, you got, you're sitting back there in quarters. Well, all of a sudden, you got a slot receiver on a safety. Okay, that's not good. So then we got to go sub package. So now we got to put a cover guy on that receiver inside. And colleges really found the advantage in doing that. Well, NFL teams are starting to use that a little bit more. So NFL teams are getting hurt a little bit more by inside receivers that have got some speed, that have got some juice, that aren't just Wes Welker and Julian Edelman running a bunch of whips and pivots and juke routes and all that stuff, shallow and all that. They're getting guys with some juice. I mean, the Texans drafted Tank Dell, who can absolutely fly. Well, Emmanuel Forbes would be
love that pick, by the way.
I'd love it too. But Emmanuel Forbes would be the answer to that. You're taking advantage of us by putting him in the slot. Okay, we're now going to put our fastest and quickest and most electrifying corner on him. And so I think they'll put Forbes inside. And what I think is very dangerous for NFC East teams is the fact that front for Washington is outrageous. So quarterbacks are going to have to throw the ball quick. They're going to have to throw the ball to the flat. That's Forbes all day, every day. So I think they'll start him inside. And I don't think that's going to be a bad thing. I don't think he'll get, bodied or anything. I think he is going to be perfect on the inside, at least to start. And then at some point, the business takes over. One of those two outside corners will be gone. And then Forbes can go move to the outside. I think he'll put on some weight. He doesn't have to be 95 pounds, but if he can get to 175, I think he'll be solid. I mean, he'll be okay.
Yeah.
But he's got everything you want in a corner, and I think that's why Washington went in and did it, whether it's inside or outside. I had him a little bit lower. I had him, I think, in the low 30s or 40s in mind because I did worry a little bit about the size. But when I saw him going to Washington, I was okay with it because I thought that fit was really good.
So when you draft a quarterback in the first round, you would like to have a guy that you believe can lead your franchise for the next decade. And sometimes it works out that way, and sometimes you swing and miss. Anthony Richardson checks a lot of boxes. Physically, arm talent, athleticism. But his decision-making was pretty average. His accuracy was inconsistent at best. People keep talking about a high ceiling. Was this a risky pick for Indianapolis at 4, or is the potential for that high ceiling good enough that you're like, yes, absolutely, you take a guy that has that kind of upside?
I think, and every situation ends up being unique, but I think Colts fans maybe 3 or 4 years ago would have said, no, Anthony Richardson, that's not after Andrew Luck. But with Luck retired, they went through Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger. They went through a bunch of just veteran retreads and I think Colts fans and the Colts in general looked at it and said, look, those negatives that you talked about, those liabilities, can we work with those? Can we improve those? Because if we can, man, we've hit an absolute home run. And I think Chris Ballard probably put it best. And I hate the fact that Ballard said this so geniusly, but he said, all these quarterbacks are flawed, right? They're all flawed. Bryce is too short. CJ didn't score well on a cognition test. Levis is Levis. Anthony has got inconsistency issues. So why don't we take the one that can hit the grand slam as opposed to the one that can hit the double in the gap? And I thought, great baseball analogy. Exactly. And so I think Indianapolis is taking a calculated risk. But the one thing that he does really well, and I think this helps a lot of young quarterbacks when they come to the NFL, is the ability to run and pick up an additional set of downs with his legs. Once you get a first, and no matter how you get a first down as a quarterback, you'd love to throw for it. But if you run for it, it buys you another set of downs. And you do it again, it buys you another set of downs. And you just get more confident the more downs you play. I mean, it's kind of simple. But with him and Jonathan Taylor, they can run whatever they want from a zone read option perspective. And he puts a lot of pressure on teams because of his running ability. I think the inconsistent nature of his throwing it starts at his feet, and I think he can improve that. In fact, I think he's been working on it. And when the Colts, after we had this high of C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, they picked Anthony Richardson and went, oh boy. That was the one spot I really didn't want him to go because I do think he'll get good coaching. I think Shane Steichen knows how to work with a quarterback like Richardson that's got a lot of upside but has some things he's got to work on, incorporating the run game into it. But once they do with Richardson and Taylor, that's going to be a tough out because NFL teams do not understand how to stop the read option. They do not understand how to stop zone read, power read, all that kind of stuff you see in college that we see in college. Like you talked about, all college fans, they see all that stuff. Why can't the NFL stop it? Because they're not used to seeing it. They don't see it every week. And so that's going to create just a little bit of difference for when you face the Colts. And that could, with that guy, that could be worth a touchdown. It could be worth a deep ball. It could be worth a 50-yard run. You just never know with him, and I think that's what scares everybody that's got to face him twice a year.
C-Spire text line, we do get a good point. Says, what if the one that hits the grand slam also hits 185 and leads the league in strikeouts? I mean, that possibility exists as well if you want to play that analogy out.
I would love that. I would love that. If he hits 185, I'd be like, yes. But I didn't mind the point because the Colts had kind of done the veteran thing year after year after year. So why not give a talented dude an opportunity to hit 185? It's 185. They're all going to be fired anyways. And they knew it.
All right, new faces in the division at the quarterback spot all over the place, including in Tennessee. They have decided that Malik Willis was not the play, and so Tennessee goes to Will Levis with the second pick of the second round. You said a second ago, you were like, Levis is, I don't know, Levis. Why were people so in love with him?
Because he looks the part. He can throw it. I don't think there's any question about his physical tools, but I just never – it's funny. Everybody said, his 2021 tape is really good. I'm like, I watched 5 complete games beginning to end of 2021 and walked out of there more confused after, going into 2022. But I felt like, okay, man, he'll get a little bit better, and it never got better in 2022. The irony of all this is I did a player comp for my top 200 players. My player comp for Will Levis back in May was the Tennessee Titan quarterback room of Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis, and he ends up teammates with those two.
By the way, we got a minute left.
I didn't mind seeing him go to Tennessee, in all honesty. He's got a long way to go. I think he's got a longer way to go than Richardson, to be honest. I think Richardson will have that much more success than Levis. Yeah, and I don't think either one of them is, was great, but I'd bet on Richardson before I would Levis, and especially with the tools and the weapons the Colts have. I think Tennessee, after Derrick Henry steps aside in a year or two, I think Tennessee is going to be in a world of hurt, and I don't think Levis is the guy to bring him back.
Bryce Young going to be a star in the NFL?
Yes.
Okay.